Hi guys, my name is Ava, and firstly I'd like to apologise for the long absence I took right after I said that I was going to be uploading more. As you can see, I've moved house, and this is my new room, hence the lack of door. But so, it's been a busy time. Please forgive the mess back there. I promise by next video it will be a bit more sorted. Also, I've just done my A-levels. So obviously that was quite stressful. It just took up a lot of time, all of this stuff, and I didn't have time to be writing up or uploading. However, I am now actually responsibility free, so I do promise that I will actually be making more videos. Also, I'd like to thank you because since I uploaded that last video, I got over 100 subscribers just from that last video, which I know may not seem like loads, but I know if 10-year-old Ava with her old YouTube channel saw that, she would like wet herself, so thank you for that. Before the video starts, you can just preemptively like and subscribe and all that good stuff because I promise this video will be good. Hercules, or Heracles my pretentious but historically accurate self will be calling him, was one of the most iconic heroes of Greek mythology. He was a great hero who was popularised by the Disney movie but unfortunately overshadowed by the sexy purple lady. Punished by being forced to commit near impossible labours, he became a hero, but when I sit a 3-hour English literature exam, I'm told it's part of the course and everyone in the country does it. However, today won't be looking at my tenacious trush through my A-levels, but instead at the possibly more exciting topic of the labours of Heracles. Heracles started as most people do, by being born, but became more different than us in the fact that he was born to Zeus, the king of the gods. Now, whilst this may be cool to us in the modern day, Zeus's debauchery meant that Heracles was not really any more exceptional than any other figure in mythology. Heracles was also mortal, but Hera, Zeus's sister wife and not Heracles' mother, was tricked into breastfeeding him, and this milk made him inhumanly strong. I'll use this quick aside to say that Heracles apparently sucked on Hera's tit so hard that it pained her, and her pulling him away from her breast made her milk squirt everywhere, and the Milky Way was created. His original name was actually Alcides, but was sort of named Heracles because it means Hera's pride, which is a bit weird considering that she sent 2 snakes to kill him and his twin brother. Now his brother just cried at the sight of the snakes, which is why this video isn't about him, and also why I didn't know he had a twin brother until making this video. But not Heracles. Heracles wasn't a stupid, crying, spineless idiot like all of the other newborn babies. Heracles strangled the snake, which made me realise that you can sort of strangle a snake at any point in its body really. Heracles grew up and married Megara, the sexy purple woman, but for some reason Hera was still on his arse. She induced a fit of madness onto Heracles, making him kill Megara and their children. Once he was out of his frenzy and realised what he did, he decided to travel to the Oracle of Delphi to see how he should atone for his sin. She told him that he should go and serve King Eurystheus of Mycenae, his cousin, and perform 10 labours for him. Now Heracles was not happy, not even necessarily because of the servitude, but more of the fact that it was towards a man who was so much worse than him. Like, did King Eurystheus ever suckle on Hera's teat? No, and apparently this was a man worth working for. So Heracles was reluctant, but he went ahead, being given the first labour from mortal milk-fed Eurystheus, to slay the Nemean lion. So despite living over 4 hours from Nemea, Eurystheus saw this lion as a massive threat, likely due to his lack of strength from not being fed magic milk as a baby. As proof of its death, Eurystheus ordered that Heracles had to skin the lion and present its furs to prove that it was truly gone. Heracles thought that this would be an easy job, but after shooting a few arrows at the lion, he found that, shock horror, its fur was impenetrable. Now, during this research, I didn't find any evidence that this lion was also breastfed by Hera, but I personally believe that it's quite likely. The lion ran into a cave and Heracles followed, blocking the entrance. Heracles then wrestled with the lion and strangled it to death, making one wonder how much Heracles really liked strangling animals, given his track record. Using one of the lion's claws to skin it, Heracles took the pelt back to Eurystheus. After seeing Heracles with the pelt, Eurystheus became terrified with him, with this feeling only being intensified when he was reminded of his earlier breastfeeding habits. Heracles, not quite knowing what to do with the skin of the random lion, decided to wear it, and this resulted in, objectively, the most coolest and amazing outfit in Greek mythology. Heracles was also just banned from Mycenae, with all future labours being told to him through a herald. He was warned that the future tasks would only become more difficult, with his next job being to slay the Lernaean Hydra. The 9-headed Hydra would terrorise the swamps of the countryside. Joined by his nephew Iolaus, Heracles went to his den and began just shooting fire arrows at it. However, the Hydra had coriels which trapped Heracles. Resorting to his foolproof technique, Heracles went for the neck, easily done considering its large surface area. He bludgeoned one of the heads in with a club. However, 2 more were in its place, a potential nightmare for Hera were she the one to be breastfeeding the creature. Whilst Heracles was trying to figure out how to get out of his predicament, a cheeky crab came along, biting his foot which was trapped by the Hydra. Heracles likely grew enraged and devastated at the revelation that you can't strangle a crab, so in this fit of rage, he bludgeoned it to death. Iolaus came up with an idea. As Heracles bashed in the heads of the Hydra, Iolaus would come and burn the tendons with a torch, meaning no more could grow in their place. This made quick work of the Hydra, and Iolaus slit it open and dipped his arrows in its venomous blood. Upon their return to the gates of Mycenae, Eurystheus decided that because he had had help from Iolaus, this was not counted as a second labour completed. Even the writers at the time didn't consider the slaying of the Hydra that impressive, with Pausanias claiming that the Hydra was just a large water snake. Heracles apparently didn't have time to bask in his victory over the great water snake, because his next task was given, to bring Eurystheus the hind of Cyrinia. 50 miles away from Eurystheus' home was a deer. Easy enough to catch, right? No. This deer must have also had some immortal breastfeeding experience because it had golden horns and bronze hooves. Another downside was that this deer belonged to the vengeful goddess Artemis, and Heracles could not even try and be in the bad books of another goddess, especially because this one was much less likely to let him suck her boobs. Heracles chased this deer for over a year, desperately trying to come up with an idea of how he could bring the hind to Eurystheus without harming the animal. Eventually, as he realised the hind was about to escape, he shot it with an arrow. As he was carrying the half-dead deer back, Artemis appeared, wondering why he was carrying her sacred pet with an arrow sticking out of it. Though she was angry, Heracles explained the entire situation to her, and was just saying that he had to bring the deer to this king who couldn't even be asked to face him. Artemis was so compassionate, allowing Heracles to take the deer back after she healed its wounds. In previous myths, Artemis had ordered that anyone who killed her animals had to sacrifice their own children to her, but because Heracles had already messed up on that front, there wasn't really much more she could do. Heracles went to Eurystheus, who decided that he wanted to keep the deer, but because Artemis wanted it back, Heracles claimed that he had to come out and get it himself. So out came Eurystheus, and Heracles immediately let the hind go, and it ran the 50 miles back to Artemis. Eurystheus was outraged, but Heracles just claimed that he didn't grab it quick enough, and was apparently quoted saying, "If you had suckled the teat of a goddess like a real man, then that wouldn't have happened." And that's a first-hand source. Eurystheus then decided that hinds weren't for him, and instead asked Heracles to catch him the Erymanthian boar. Every morning, this boar would run down from a mountain, gouging men and animals with its great tusks. Deciding that capturing the man-killing boar wasn't of immediate priority, Heracles instead went for a drink with his centaur friend, Pholus. This drink resulted in Heracles massacring the local centaur population. So after finding his friend dead, Heracles decided that he should probably get back to this boar business. It wasn't exactly hard to find with all the snorting and squealing, so Heracles decided that he would just chase it and make noises at it back. The boar eventually hid in a bush, and Heracles was able to skewer it with his spear and drag it out, taking it back in a net alive. Deciding that Heracles had been doing too much hunting as of late, Eurystheus decided to give him a completely different task: to clean the Augean stables. King Augeas owned more cattle than anyone in Greece, and also his cattle were immortal, which for some reason meant that they produced an insane amount of dung. Eurystheus said that Heracles had to clean the stables within a day, most likely due to him being fed up of these year-long hunting trips. Heracles went to Augeas and said that he would clean the stables in a day in return for 1/10 of his cattle. Augeas agreed, knowing the task to be impossible, and sending his son Phyleus to keep an eye on him. Heracles tore out some holes in the walls of where the cattle were held and then dug 2 trenches by a local river. The river's diversion led straight to the cattle yard, and with this diversion the water was able to basically flush out the stable, cleaning it in minutes. After going back, Heracles was denied the cattle because Augeas had found out that it was Eurystheus who sent him. His son Phyleus testified that the job had been done, and a local judge ruled that Heracles had to be paid. Fuming that Heracles had got some cows for his work, Eurystheus said that this labour also didn't count because he'd been paid. Remember guys, it only counts if it's borderline slavery. Determined to give Heracles an actually impossible task, Eurystheus then sent him after the Stymphalian birds. These birds weren't just any old pigeons you'd find in your back garden. They were man-eating birds with razor-sharp feathers, bronze beaks, and poisonous dung. Athena came to Heracles' aid, giving him a bronze crotala. He could then clap together the crotala, basically scaring the birds out of their hiding places. This worked, and the birds flew away, and Heracles was even able to shoot a few of them as they were fleeing. This was all that Eurystheus had asked for him, making this impossible task actually quite easy, as long as you were fed with immortal breast milk. This next task actually links to another myth, with Heracles being sent to capture the Minotaur daddy, better known as the Cretan bull. The Cretan bull was beautiful, having pure white fur and even being too gorgeous for King Minos to sacrifice. But not so beautiful that a human would have sex with it, right? Right? A story for another day perhaps, but for right now, Eurystheus just wanted to look at a pretty cow. Heracles easily captured it, bringing it to Eurystheus who, learning from his previous attempts to keep animals, decided to let it free. Away the bull ran, in all of its beauty, to be killed by Theseus just a few years later. Liking Heracles' reputation from stealing animals from others, Eurystheus then decided that he wanted the mares of Diomedes. Diomedes was the king of a tribe called the Bistonies, who looks after these horses, who eat men for some reason. Heracles and his swashbuckling volunteers just chased away those that were tending to the horses, quite easily. Unfortunately for them, the Bistonies quickly realised what was going on and attacked Heracles and gang. Whilst Heracles was fighting the Bistonies, he left a young man in charge called Abderos, who was in charge of just looking after the horses while they fought. Weirdly enough, the horses didn't eat Abderos. Victory! But they did trample him and drag him around until he died. After killing Diomedes, Heracles returned, and after seeing the flattened Abderos, quickly founded a town in his honour, then went back to give the horses to Eurystheus. Not wanting to keep the company of these man-eating horses, Eurystheus quickly let them go, making the entire journey and Abderos' death futile. Now, deciding to give Heracles a much-needed break from animals, he decided to send him after Hippolyta's girdle. By the way guys, I think it's Hippolyta. I don't know. I'm probably just going to mix it up. I'm saying both. Come after me, Greek people. Hippolyta was the queen of a tribe called the Amazons, great female warriors who could often match the Greeks in battle. Hippolyta had been given a girdle or belt by Ares, god of war. However, Eurystheus decided that he wanted it as a gift for his daughter, so sent Heracles after it. Heracles' gang quickly realised that even he, in all his goddess milk-fed glory, couldn't take on the entirety of the Amazons alone, so decided to go with him. Heracles arrived and met Hippolyta, asking her for the belt, to which she agreed, but there was something dubious going on. Hera, deciding to get revenge for her stolen breast milk, disguised herself as an Amazon. She then told the others that Heracles and his gang had the intention of stealing Hippolyta. Seeing the Amazons riding down to save their queen, Heracles made the genius and split-second decision to kill the only person not involved, Hippolyta, and steal the girdle off her dead body. Heracles and gang quickly drove the Amazons away and then headed home. Heracles then gave the girdle to Eurystheus, who gave it to his daughter, who was surely confused as to why her birthday present was drenched in blood. Eurystheus then gave Heracles his third cow-centric mission, asking him to steal the cattle of Geryon. Sorry guys, it's the next day. I had to stop filming yesterday. But anyways, the cattle of Geryon. Geryon was a bit of an odd one. He had 3 heads and 3 sets of legs. Like, how do you walk with that? How do you walk with that? He lived on Erythea, with his red cattle being guarded by the three-headed dog Cerberus' younger brother, Orthus, who was less cool because he only had 2 heads. Taking a quick second to commemorate his long journey, Heracles built 2 mountains in what we would now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. Upon arrival, Orthus immediately attacked Heracles, but Heracles quickly put him down by bashing his head in with a club. Upon hearing the commotion with his cattle, Geryon also attacked Heracles but was quickly shot dead. On his way back with the cattle, Heracles was attacked by 2 sons of Poseidon. However, Heracles was much better than them because he was a son of Zeus and was breastfed by Hera, so he quickly finished them. One of Geryon's cows also wanted to jump ship, literally doing so and swimming to Sicily. After his long and tedious journey, Heracles was also home, but Hera had to stick her little nose into his business again. She sent a tiny fly and scared all the cattle away. Heracles then had to chase after all of the cattle, finding them and bringing them back. And upon presenting them to Eurystheus, he got another smack in the face as the cows were sacrificed to Hera. Despite taking 8 years to complete these 10 labours that were asked of him, Eurystheus' stinginess, likely due to his lack of divine milk, meant that he still had to complete 2 more labours. Eurystheus decided that he now wanted to challenge the gods, and he asked Heracles to steal the apples of the Hesperides. These apples were a gift to Zeus, given to him by, Hera. To add to that, the apples were guarded by a 100-headed dragon and the daughters of Atlas, called the Hesperides. Heracles also faced the relatively big issue of not having a clue where the apples were, and he was just travelling through the continents hoping that he'd come across them. Eventually he came across a sea dog called Nereus who just happened to know where the apples were. Heracles then used his good old-fashioned technique of strangling the dog until he was told where they were. Throughout his journey he was challenged to wrestling matches, he was nearly sacrificed, but most importantly he came across Prometheus. Prometheus had been punished by the gods for stealing their fire, and he was punished by being tied to a rock and having an eagle come every morning to eat his liver, and then his liver would grow back, and then the eagle would come out every day and eat the liver. But Heracles decided to put an end to this, killing the eagle, and Prometheus told him the secret to getting the apples. He did as Prometheus told him to. Heracles went to Atlas, who was tasked with holding the sky and the earth up, and said that if Heracles held it himself for a bit, then Atlas could go and get the apples. Atlas, not wanting to hold the sky that much, said that he would actually take the apples to Eurystheus himself as long as Heracles held them a bit longer. Heracles agreed but asked Atlas if he could just take the sky back for a second so he could pad his shoulders. Atlas took it, but Heracles instead stole the apples and ran back to Eurystheus. However, because the apples belonged to the gods, Heracles later had to just take them back to Athena, again making his journey a waste. Though he was almost free of his duties, Heracles still had one more labour to do, and this would be his hardest yet. He had to go into the underworld and kidnap Cerberus. Tasked with guarding the entrance to the underworld, Cerberus was a 3-headed dog who had snakes along his back. Cerberus Mabel had a bone to pick with Heracles, as he had already killed 2 of his siblings, the Lenaean Hydra and Orthus. Taking some more time to wrestle people on his way, Heracles just asked Hades for Cerberus, to which he agreed, as long as he could beat him in a battle of brute strength. Hades had simply made the fatal flaw of forgetting that Heracles had been nursed by a divine mother. As he had done with nearly every species of animal at this point, Heracles strangled Cerberus, strangling all 3 heads at once, forcing him into submission. And this had made the almost impossible task actually very possible. Heracles showed Cerberus to Eurystheus and immediately released the dog back to Hades, not harming him in any way. And so, Heracles' time is up, and he is no longer the servant to the beta male Eurystheus, and he can now do what he wants. Some say he sailed with the Argonauts, others say he was a great Greek general, others say that he only now went and killed his wife and children, but if that was the case, then what was all of this for? So that is it for today. We have learned that Heracles can do pretty much everything, that Hera is a world-class hater, and the importance of goddesses breastfeeding. The website that I used to research this video will be linked in the description. Please once again like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I'd also like to say thank you to Isabel who did all of the drawings in this video, so big thank you to her, and that is her Instagram if you want to go and follow her as well, which you should. But that is all for today guys, thank you once again for watching and bye bye!